Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 14th Berlin Wissenschaftspreis award ceremony.
The 14th award ceremony of the Berlin Wissenschaftspreis here at the Urania. And a special welcome, of course, to all of you following us tonight via our live stream online. My name is Matthias Kudder, and it's my great pleasure to guide you through our program tonight. And before we start with the program, there's one organizational advice that I have for you. The award ceremony will be mostly in German, but we do have simultaneous translation in English, of course, so if you need one of the headsets, we have plenty of them available. And to those of you online, we offer the stream both in English and in German. Meine Damen und Herren, wir begrüßen Sie hier zu der
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the award ceremony of the Berliner Wissenschaftspreis, to a very special place. We are at Urania Berlin, which is quite an institution in Berlin with an exciting history. Founded in 1888, and it was something like the Berghain of Berlin's science and academic scene. Everybody went and go. You had to go when you were in Berlin. The Edisons, the Einsteins, the Siemens, the Manns, and of course even sometimes the Emperor. It was the place to be, basically. But the future of the Urania seems to look not least eventful. And nobody knows this future better than the director of the Urania, Ulrich Weigand. You have the floor. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Kudder, Governing Mayor Michael Müller, laureates, professors, partners of the Science Week, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to the Urania Berlin. Welcome to the presentation of the 14th Berliner Wissenschaftspreis. We are delighted that our house was chosen for the presentation of the award. It is wonderful that excellent researchers and scientists will be here tonight to witness this ceremony and send out a strong signal throughout Germany. Urania has been making the case for science and academia for decades now. Given the challenges we see these days, our work has become indispensable. Here at Urania Berlin, we bring people from the most diverse parts of society together, and we give them an access to scientific and academic work. Only last Saturday, we were here with you, Michael Müller, and young scientists and researchers in Berlin, and had a trade fair, tabula rasa. And the result was quite successful. More than 700 people came to join us and get informed about science and academia in Berlin. And talking about the future plans of Urania Berlin, in the years to come, our house will continue to grow and act as a citizens' forum for democracy and diversity, science and the environment, and approach new parts and segments of our society and win them over for science and academia, because this is what it's all about, to raise the profile of science and academia and to talk about how we can master the challenges of our times with the support of research and teaching, because this is fundamental to our democracy and to our communities. And this is what this evening showcases. The Berliner Wissenschaftspreis is an award for outstanding research achievements in Berlin. It is also an award that is part of the Science Week Berlin and the highlight of this year, this Science Year 2021 in Berlin. According to tradition, we are also awarding a Nachwuchspreis to a young junior scientist in Berlin. We are all proud of the wonderful development of science and academia in our city, and we are excited to find out who will be the prize winners today. Our future coalition is already taking the steps for the future of science and academia in Berlin, for a new age of technology and hopefully science. We are looking forward to learn more about the science policy of our new federal government and the new Berlin government. They are setting the course for the future, and this is very important. There's one pressing challenge. We need to make sure that we engage society at large in dialogue with science and research. And this has to include all people of our society. Urania stands ready to do so. Let us engage in dialogue about our future, about science. In this spirit, I wish all of us a wonderful and inspiring evening and a wonderful award ceremony. Thank you very much indeed.
Meine Damen und Herren, eine kleine Rückreise in die Zeit.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's look to the past. November 10th, 1962. Precisely where Mr. Müller is sitting now is where Willy Brandt, our former governing mayor, was sitting, and he handed over the keys to the new Urania. Back then, the Berlin Wall had been dividing our city in east and west for already a year, and this wall didn't stop at the scientific and academic community. And in 2019, many of you will remember, this is exactly where we celebrated the great success of the University Alliance, when we won the title University of Excellence. And how did we do this? By showing that we can transcend borders, we can transcend walls, and that we are working step by step to turn Berlin into a common research space. Today we are celebrating science. We are celebrating two researchers who have contributed greatly to our city. But we will now hear more about what is going on in our city and who will be the award winners tonight. Please welcome with me the Senator for Higher Education and Research, the governing mayor of Berlin and member of the Deutsche Bundestag, Müller. I still have to get used to the Bundestag part. Matthias Kuda, Mr. Weigand's guests of honors from the universities, non-university institutions, research institutes. A warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the Berlin Urania. I'd like to welcome one person in particular who traveled here, the regional president of Hanover. He used to be a permanent secretary for higher education and research. Stefan Krach, we are delighted to have you. It's wonderful that you came, and I think it shows very well that the things you did here over the past years in Berlin, the tasks you performed were tasks that were close to your heart, and I think you did an excellent job. I'd like to thank you for the great cooperation, and I wish you all the best of luck for your future in Hanover, and maybe there might be room for cooperation between Hanover or Lower Saxony and Berlin, so welcome and all the best for you. Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to Urania, 1888, founded in 1888, more than 100 years of history, a science center, maybe the first science center of its kind. It doesn't sound as sexy, so to speak, as the first Berghain, but it is an outstanding and excellent institution in science for science communication, and Urania has set itself quite ambitious targets for the futures, which is tapping into the experience it has to further engage and involve civil society when it comes to solving problems such as climate change, medicine, research. being a meeting place for people. And this is how Urania's mission, and these are the steps Urania wants to take in the future. And of course, it makes it an important and maybe even more important for our partner for us in the future. So I'm delighted to be in a new location this year after awarding the prize at the Red Town Hall and the Naturkunde Museum in the years before. So this award ceremony is always an opportunity to look back at what's happened in the past year, what happened in the past under the past parliament, what we achieved. And of course, I think we can say that the last 1.5 years have been quite tough times for all of us, both professionally and privately, for all of us, scientists and researchers in particular. And I'd like to stress for many students as well. I know, because I was part of the meetings, the discussions, the decisions we took were very, very tough decisions. We talked about children, we talked about families, but I think students were the ones that we didn't talk about enough. Those were people who lost their daily lives, to the chance to go to university, to meet with fellow students. They were locked in a small shared flats and didn't have the chance to go out to meet one another. And I think it is important now, of course, still respecting the restrictions that are still in place and taking into account the developments with the pandemic, but at the same time enabling in-person events and lectures in universities, because I think this is fundamental to your career paths and to your future development as well. Scientists and researchers have made outstanding achievements over the past year. We, as policymakers, wouldn't have been able to do what we did without these superhuman efforts, without the expertise from researchers and scientists. Goes and is true for all fields. It started with what equipment do we need to counter the pandemic? What about testing capacities? What kind of tests do we need? And of course, the development of vaccines. And I think we need to be clear here. None of us would have expected to have a vaccine within months' time that is so effective. And I'd also like to say that it is very sad for me personally that there are so many people who are not taking the opportunity that we have. When I take part in video conferences or telephone conferences with my fellow mayors across the world, we have 17 city partnerships internationally, and my colleagues, the fellow mayors, tell me, we just have one vaccine with an effectiveness of only 60%, and we don't have enough of it. And they look to Berlin and see we have many vaccines that are even more effective, and still there are just maybe 70% of people who have got the jab. So I'd like to take the opportunity to say once again, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to act as partners, to reach out to people when it comes to countering this challenge, to support us in convincing people to get the jab, to get the booster shot that is being offered now, to join us in educating people about what's possible for young people, for children as well, to engage in dialogue with families, to support us even when it comes to the question of which rules and restrictions will be useful in the future and which not. So I'm asking this favor of you to continue to act as a partner. Mr. Weigand mentioned this before. 1 week ago, we stood here at this stage and had a debate about how to deal with the challenges we face, especially climate and environmental policy. And this is a similar situation. Policymakers have the duty to take decisions, to create the right framework decisions to make sure we reach our climate targets. But we won't be able to achieve this alone. We need partners, we need alliances, we need researchers and scientists, their expertise, and of course, science communication. That's the way it is. It is of utmost importance for large parts of society, of the public, that scientists join us in educating and explaining. Otherwise, we won't be able to achieve our goals, to reach our targets. So in this context, science communication will play a fundamental role in the years to come, to a way greater extent than it did in the past decades, not just regarding COVID, but in many other regards as well. So there is a lot to do for all of us. This scientific council, I think, was the last one to look into this question of how science communication should really work. And many scientists and researchers said they don't feel prepared for this dialogue with civil society. And many scientists and researchers have to experience defamation, hostility. So it's all the more important that the institutions support each and every researcher and scientist, offer them training, equip them with the tools they need to face up to these challenges. We need to forge alliances to support one another, to make each other stronger, and not accept this form of discrimination, of hostility, of hatred and violence, one must really say, in this debate about what's the best way forward. It's about how to make our lives better, how to improve our society, our communities. Of course, we can have different opinions. We can disagree, but we mustn't accept defamation against our scientists and researchers. We mustn't accept it, and we must take a clear stance against it. When we award the Wissenschaftspreis, we look back on what was going on in the past year in Berlin. Many things were achieved over the past year. Many things, of course, not all of it. When you think back on how many institutions located to Berlin, the infrastructure we set up, from the Weizenbaum Institute to BFOLD, the BIH, the support by the federal government are receiving in Berlin. Of course, a lot of money that went to our city with the Naturkunde Museum Berlin and now with the support for the Heart Center. We made quite some headway, and of course the excellence strategy is another example. I think we prepared very well. We were ready to take on a fight, and we really didn't expect it to be the results to be as good as they were. So it's wonderful that we were successful in a network, in an alliance, a collaboration. With the Science Week, with Falling Walls, the 2021 Science Year, we created public platforms of forums to involve Berliners and the guests of our city and to enthuse them for science and research, and to raise the profile of the great work of the many researchers in our city. So there is a lot we can build on. Thinking of Einstein, the Einstein Center, that has made such great progress over the past 5 years, the Fraunhofer Center, the Leibniz Institutes. All of them are important key partners for our own institutions. We will be able to create fresh impetus in the discourse with civil society, which wasn't always easy for me and, of course, Stefan Krach as well, the Institute for Islamic theology that was contested, disputed. But was this a bad thing? No, it was important to exchange, to enter into dialogue. How do we want to shape the way Islamic theology is taught in our city? These were questions that were important to talk about, and a very good initiative. And throughout the last 5 years, we never stood idly by. We achieved a lot, and we were always wondering, what's next? The Heart Center, of course, finally had a breakthrough over the past years, and we're already thinking ahead with what we call Cell Hospital. They are seeking to break ground once again in medicine, sending a strong message even beyond Berlin. We've won over new partners for the health sectors, just thinking about the WHO pandemic and academic hub that has opened in Berlin. So I think we've achieved quite a lot over the past 5 years that we can build on in the time to come. And I also want to say that there's one area that is not always seen by the general public. Berlin as a free city of science and research. This is something that played a key role in the past 5 years. There were researchers and scientists who moved to Berlin who were no longer able to work freely in their own countries. And we supported them in their relocation to our city, gave them a chance to work, do research here, teach here freely. And I think this is something of utmost importance. I keep repeating this, and I think we can't repeat this enough. Being a city of openness, an international city, is not a soft location factor, but a hard factor for a successful future development of Berlin. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably my last speech as a senator for higher education and research, at least my last public speech. And you all know that probably I will be handing over the baton on December 21st. And I'd like to use this occasion to say something that I'm quite concerned about. If we achieved so much, one must wonder why. Because none of what we achieved was a matter of course. None of it would have come about on its own. I think we were able to achieve it because of 3 things. First, quality, reliability, and cooperation. I think these were fundamental preconditions for the federal government to get involved in Berlin, for others to look to Berlin, to say, there's something going on, we want to locate there. That a network is thriving here, partners forging alliances, cooperation and reliability. And if this is the bedrock, we can think about what does this mean for the future. I'm not really worried about quality in the future. Of course, you have to keep step and work hard. But I think you have come to a point where you have attracted so much talent. They will attract further talent in the years to come. Smart minds coming from across the world who want to be part of the scene here. But talking about reliability, you have to be careful, both policymakers and scientists and researchers, because policymakers need to guarantee this reliability also by taking the right finance political decisions. Universities need to know what they can rely on in the years to come, about their budgets, about investments. Reliability is key here. Higher education and research needs to work with policymakers on this, but they need to work closely together. It won't come about on its own. And the third point, as I said, at least in my view, is cooperation, as I said. And this is something I'm worried about. something I'm concerned about. Let me be very frank about it. On the excellence strategy, we achieved so much because of our networks. But what about the BUA? What did they achieve in the past years? I'm just coming from the coalition talks at the federal government. Today we are talking about the future, 2026, 28. It is now that the right structural decisions are being put into place. They are looking at the clusters of excellence. Are they prepared for the next decisions? Did you use every chance, or did we use every chance we had to strengthen the alliance? There's a second point that is talked about in public now. The Berlin University law. Let me be frank here as well. The universities rightly say we need flexibility and freedom. You need to enable us to act, to shape things. You cannot accept structures to be fixated. Universities, science and research thrives on change. It is right. There's nothing wrong about it. But policymakers are the partners. And they say, what about reality? In all lives, in all parts of lives in our society, we're working on improving living conditions, career paths for young scientists and researchers. Making them more reliable is our job. 100 years ago, the first woman took professorship in Berlin, and we only have 33% of women professors in Berlin, and we are celebrating ourselves because we rank first in Germany? It's a shame. Do we not have to do more to lay the cornerstone for young scientists, for young researchers, to enable them to plan ahead, to plan their lives? I think this is our duty, and I think there's nothing wrong about it. And now these two positions come together, and we need to find a solution. And I think it is our job to solve this problem. We as politicians have been elected, and all of us, we have been chosen to solve this challenge, to find agreement in problematic situations, in conflicts, to find compromise. So Berlin's parliament took a decision where universities now say, this is difficult, this is tough. So now parliament needs to see with the universities how they turn this into compromise. This is our task, this is our job, this is the challenge we need to rise to engage in cooperation and to find compromise. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a second example that of a problematic situation. If cooperation in an institution, in an organization, is poor, of course, internal criticism about university presidents, about leaders is important. Of course, there's no university president who couldn't do better. And there are the right and adequate bodies to formulate this kind of criticism, constructive criticism. But those who go beyond the right bodies, talks to the public and creates pressure, in this way, they do harm. And I say so from my experience as a policymaker of 20 years. There's foul play in politics as well. And it always leaves damage. It takes its toll. And if you want to heal these wounds, it takes time and it takes a lot of effort. And those who are hurt think about revenge, and then you start all over again. So let me be very clear here as well. In our university institutions, in our research institutes, we have leadership structures. We have boards where you should be able to voice any sort of criticism, and then all those involved have to find a way to deal with it. But if somebody tells me as a policymaker, take good care what you say in public because there are others who are watching you, then I say yes. But the same is true for the internal organization of our excellent universities. They are also being watched. They are under scrutiny. And I expect that elected presidents receive loyalty, that they can rely on the loyalty of their institution, that these debates about the best way forward are held within and not outside an institution. Not a mean feat, ladies and gentlemen, but it was important to me to talk about this today, because I am truly concerned that we might take things too easily. And social democrats love to use quotes from Willy Brandt, and usually this comes in quite handy, especially if you are at a very difficult party convention. And there's one quote, something that Willy Brandt said that I like very much, and I think it's very fitting when it comes to Berlin's academic and scientific community. In 1992, Willy Brandt said at an international convention, and I quote words to the effect, "Nothing is a matter of course, and nothing remains forever. So think back on your strength and on the fact that every time needs their own answer if you want to do good." I think this is quite fitting when it comes to the situation we're in. And we have the opportunity to do something, to achieve something great on the basis of what we did over the past 5 years. These last 5 years as governing mayor of Berlin weren't easy. It all started with the influx of refugees, almost 100,000 people over just a few weeks. Then we had the terrorist attack at Breitscheidplatz, with all the consequences in security policy. In the last 1.5 years, so almost a third of my term was dominated by the coronavirus pandemic. But still, it was a wonderful time that you enabled me to enjoy. It was 5 years that we were able to shape together for our city. It is no longer just culture that Berlin depends on. Culture stays as an important pillar, but now we have science and academia, and we are perceived internationally. This is quite a boon for Berlin. I'm also grateful to all of you for the many talks, the many encounters with you, especially over the past 5 years as a senator for higher education and research. And I'm grateful for all of what I was able to learn from you over those years. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for working with me to your institutions. I wish you all the best and the best of luck for you and your future.
Ladies and gentlemen, now let's move on without further ado. We'll now come to the first laureate of tonight. The Berliner Wissenschaftspreis for Young Talent recognizes innovative research in a field that is particularly relevant to Berlin as a hub for science and academia. Now we'll get an introduction to this year's winner. who was supposed to have been mentioned by the governing mayor, namely Professor Mira Sievers. So Professor Christoph Markschies, the president of the Berliner Brandenburg Academy of Sciences and Humanities, will introduce this year's winner. He asked me to introduce him briefly, which isn't easy. If you look at the Wikipedia entry, you know that we'll miss the reception at the end if we go into all the details. So, true to the motto of the award, I'll focus on the years when you were a young talent. After leaving school in 1980, Professor Markschies started his career by traveling around Italy. After that, he studied at the universities of Marburg, Jerusalem, Munich, and Tübingen, where he got his PhD in 1991. Now, in 1994, he completed his postdoctoral thesis at the University of Jena and got his first tenure there as a professor. Up until the year 2000, 6 years, 2 professorships, and 1 Leibniz Prize later, he was elected president of Humboldt University in 2006, thus becoming Germany's youngest president. And today he will introduce today's awardee, but before he will start his speech, first we'll watch a film about her.
Mein Name ist Mira Sievers, ich bin Juniorprofessorin für islamische Glaubensgrundlagen, Philosophie und Ethik am Berliner Institut für Islamische Theologie. Ich beschäftige mich dort mit der systematischen Theologie, das heißt der Frage nach der Glaubenslehre, mit Fragen der islamischen Ethik und auch mit Fragen von islamischer Theologie und Gender. Ich habe angefangen zu studieren in Frankfurt am Main im Jahr 2010, das Jahr, in dem die islamische Theologie in Deutschland eingeführt worden ist.
Professor Mira Sievers hat viele Eigenschaften, die sie auszeichnet, und eine dieser Eigenschaften ist ihre gesunde Skepsis gegenüber Feststellungen und Fragestellungen und wie man sie aufarbeiten kann. Also diese gesunde Kritik, die sie mitbringt, bereichert unsere Diskussion immer. Und das Innovative an ihrem Forschungsansatz ist, überhaupt zu hinterfragen, was die Ethiktradition zu einer islamischen Ethik macht.
Mich faszinieren zum einen wirklich diese alten Texte. Ich finde es unglaublich spannend, das Denken der muslimischen Gelehrten zu erforschen, Texte zu lesen, zu sehen, mit was für wirklich wichtigen Fragen sich Gelehrte in dieser Tradition beschäftigt haben. Fragen, die eben bis heute relevant sind.
Mira Sievers brennt für ihre Forschung und sie hat die einzigartige Gabe, auch andere für ihre Forschung zu begeistern. Des Weiteren ist die Forschung von Mira Sievers durch eine sehr, sehr starke Interdisziplinarität geprägt. Ihre Themen sind nicht nur innovativ, sie sind auch gesellschaftsrelevant und vor allem schafft sie es, geisteswissenschaftliche, kulturwissenschaftliche, aber auch genuin theologische Forschung in einen Dialog miteinander zu bringen.
Ich freue mich mit Mira Sievers. Sie ist jemand, die hat es sehr verdient und ich bin für die Universität stolz, dass sie ausgewählt wurde und halte die Entscheidung für eine Brillante der Auswahlkommission.
Vielen, vielen Dank. Ich freue mich sehr darüber, diesen Preis bekommen zu haben. Es bedeutet mir sehr viel, weil es zeigt, dass die Arbeit, die wir in der islamischen Theologie hier in Berlin leisten, anerkannt wird. Und und das ist wirklich eine große Freude, so kurze Zeit sozusagen nach der Eröffnung des Instituts.
Philology and hermeneutics do not go together, usually. Governing Mayor of Berlin, Mr. Müller, if I can just mention this in passing, thank you so much for your remarks, especially at the end. Philology and hermeneutics usually don't go together. Well, if we use the subjunctive now or the optative, some people might be interested in this, and other people might be interested what it means. But only very few people can bring these two things together. Mira Sievers is one of those people, and this is why she deserves this award. When the Institutes for Islamic Theology were founded in Germany, Professor Kunst, Steffen Krach, there was a huge concern that these were simply cheap copies of the Christian model. Mira Sievers developed a model of inter-theology which is being co-opted and taken over by the Christian theologies. This is why she deserves this award. Usually, ladies and gentlemen, ethics and the Holy Script do not go together. Usually, ethical decisions in Christian, Jewish, and Islamic traditions are treated like an aperçu with excerpts from the Holy Script. Now, I did read your most recent article, Professor Sievers, where you talked about environmental ethics, and as we've just heard in the film, you also talked about the combination, the links between the old authoritative texts and contemporary issues, and this is also why you deserve this award. Now, I've mentioned 3 very strong reasons for awarding this prize, and this is very rare. These reasons are very strong because here we see a link between things that usually don't go together. The friends of the subjunctive, those who support hermeneutics, those who engage in Islamic theology but don't know how to go about it, and those who are helpful and are at a loss as to how environmental ethics and the ancient scripts can be brought together. Now, they all have to look to Mira Sievers to learn about this. Now, maybe some people may balk at using the word, which you can see behind me, young talent, Nachwuchs. And a colleague of mine usually tells me, young talent, you have to go to the kindergarten to find young talent. Now, this is obviously a widespread view, and we absolutely had to give this prize to this academic tonight. Now, I'd like to explain, I've tried to explain how we got here. You said that you were trained, you studied in Frankfurt, but you didn't mention you were born in Neuwied. This is a town in Germany which is important to the Enlightenment. La Roche had the idea to establish an academy there. You might laugh at this because you know it. This academy was supposed to defend the cause of the Enlightenment. Wieland and Herder from Weimar asked why they should move to Neuwied. But you have brought this academy from Neuwied to Berlin in the form of the Institute of Islamic Theology, which now is becoming a reality, what couldn't become a reality back in the 18th century. So maybe in the 13th century, we already had some form of enlightenment in Islam, while other people still lived in the Dark Ages. But this is only as a parenthesis, because otherwise Mr. Bogolte is going to be angry with me, and I don't want this. So you were born in Neuwied. You mentioned Frankfurt. This is where you got your PhD. And you linked the topic of creation with with Holy Islam and the Holy Scripts. And you made a huge contribution towards developing an independent discipline. And this also is why you deserve the prize, because creation is obviously at the beginning of everything. Now, you are a professor at the Institute of Islamic Theology, as has been mentioned, and I, as a theologist, as a philologist, know that there are few people who can speak various languages and deal with environmental ethics at the same time. Ahlan wa sahlan, as I would like to say. Now, theology here in Berlin, this was also mentioned by the governing mayor, are being put into a relationship, an interrelationship by her and by the Institute. And this is, of course, very important, especially because this needs to be organized. We need an institutional basis for such interrelationship. And we've also seen in the film environmental ethics is an excellent example that shows that Islam is not moored in the backwaters, that needs to be instructed by us, the enlightened people. No. Actually, we can do a lot, and you have done a lot for social cohesion here in this city, also with regard to the Berlin University Alliance, and not only for cohesion in this city, but also beyond. Professor Sievers, you have demonstrated that the experiment of the Berlin Institute of Islamic Theology, which has been supported by many people, some of them are here tonight, is successful, that we can expect a lot from you and that we are looking forward to what you will achieve in the future. May this award inspire you in all the various fields that you are working on with great liberty and great joy, hopefully, after the pandemic. Ahlan wa sahlan, many congratulations. Please come to the front. Now, I'd like to read out the certificate the governing mayor of Berlin awards to Professor Mira Sievers, Humboldt University of Berlin. This award for her innovative research in the area of Islamic theology and ethics, the Nachwuchspreis for Young Talent, the governing mayor of Berlin, 5 November 2021. Congratulations also from me. So you might think you're not excited when you have to give a speech, but actually you are. Governing Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I'm overjoyed to receive this prize today. Now, of course, it's not self-evident that I am getting such a prize as a Muslim theologist, and I'm moved by this. It's a great honor. My discipline, Islamic theology, has only just turned 10. When I set out to study in 2010, we discussed the recommendations of the Council for Science and Academia and about how amenable Islamic theology is to academic investigations, and about imams with a bachelor's. Many things were not clear, the future of the new students and the development of the subject. When I started, age 19, to study as part of 100 other students in Frankfurt, I was asked in an interview by the German broadsheet Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung, and they asked me, what kind of career can you have with such a discipline, with such a subject? And I replied, well, maybe I'll become a religious education teacher, maybe I'll do research, but above all things, I want to set things in motion. And as you can see today, I did opt for a career in research, and I still want to set things in motion. But at the same time, I feel that some things have already moved along quite a bit. The Islamic theology exists in 11 universities in Germany. Currently, there are 2,500 students enrolled, and the most recently opened institute here in Berlin, we are now fully engaging in teaching and research. It's a great joy for me to be able to work here in Berlin. The pioneering euphoria is extraordinary, especially because it makes a good combination with the well-established structures of a university that is steeped in tradition. Being a junior professor here in Berlin has inspired me to find new fields of research where you can set things in motion. I'm deeply grateful that my and our research enjoys such visibility, and I'm grateful about this recognition. The Prophet Muhammad, as you can see, you don't only get quotes of Willy Brandt, but also by the Prophet Muhammad. He said, "Who is not grateful to humans is not grateful to God." Now, true to these words, I know that many people have made it possible for me to get this award tonight. First of all, Islamic theology in Frankfurt. The heartfelt wish of the first director of our institute, Professor Ömer Özsoy, wanted us to become ambassadors of the Islamic tradition in the German context. Now, I was fortunate enough to be able to study this Islamic tradition in Frankfurt for many years, to learn the languages and discuss many theological problems. I'm immensely grateful to my teachers, colleagues, and friends in Frankfurt. Now, I found my academic teachers in Frankfurt, but also beyond, in London, Berlin, and Jerusalem. Ömer Özsoy and Angelika Neuwirth didn't teach me only to interpret the Quran and to engage in a theology based on it, they also passed their fascination for the Quran on to me. Müfid Dakmüller and Ayman Shihadi taught me how to get access to the systematic theology of the Kalam. They taught me to develop a sensitivity and that medieval Arabic texts are full of exciting theology and can help us solve today's pressing problems. But I'm also aware of one thing. The fact that a woman like me gets a chance to engage in Islamic theology in the first place is not self-evident. And maybe it was only possible here in Berlin. I'm very fortunate about this. Now, I profoundly appreciate this fact and also the good working conditions. I'm immensely grateful that the State of Berlin and the universities have made the right decisions at the right time. The BIT was supported by Professor Kunst, who has an awareness of theologies. Professor Michael Bogolte is the founding director of the Institute. He also put in place the best conditions imaginable for us. We benefit from this every day, and this is a great merit. Finally, many colleagues from other subjects at Humboldt University accepted us into their fold and made us feel welcome. I'm especially grateful to the collaboration with colleagues from related theologies. Now, these good personal relationships are encouraging, and the academic collaboration is inspiring. Professor Katerina Pischny deserves special credit. We heard her in the film. I've been able to work with her on several occasions, and this goes to show how well intertheological collaboration functions, not only when we had falafel together. It's also great to have been able to work together with my colleagues Serdar Kurnas, Mohamed Garaibe, Tuba Ishik, and Ufuk Topkara. And we've seen some successes over the past years, thanks to my colleagues at the BIT and my team, Elif, Bahatin, Leonard, and Mariam. Now, the past 10 years of Islamic theology in Germany have not always been easy. They have actually been full of challenges. That also holds true for my personal development from a fresher at uni who wanted to set things in motion to being awarded the Nachwuchspreis for new talent in Berlin. Now, to overcome many obstacles, challenges, and resistances, I had to use all my resolve and willpower. I could never have achieved that without the support of my family and friends, to which I am eternally grateful. Professor Rana Asufi was among those who helped me the most. She often assisted me in difficult moments. But a special credit goes to Johanna Sievers, who always was there for me, especially when the going got tough. Now, I'd like to conclude by underlining that I hope we can live up to our ambition of being true ambassadors of the Islamic tradition here in Berlin. So thank you again, Governing Mayor, for this wonderful award. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are familiar with this event, like many of you do, know that for our musical program we always have outstanding graduates from the Hans Eisler School of Music. And we like to break with convention. This also holds true for tonight. We have been able to recruit a true master of his craft. Daniel Mandolini studied classical guitar, but today he's doing something different. You might ask yourself what this means here on the stage. He is a professional beatboxer and voice artist. He has won the German championships multiple times and came out on top at the European level as well. He was placed second in the World Championships and is an international loop station champion. And you'll find out what this is in a moment.
Dankeschön. Kann man mich hören? Ja, ja, ja. Dankeschön. So 10 Minuten lang ungefähr. Let's go. Danke. Level 2. Danke. Dankeschön. Ja, ich mache seit 20 Jahren Beatboxen, das ist schon wirklich eine lange Zeit. Daniel Mandolini, ich werde aber auch als Mando, stehe ich quasi auf der Bühne, das ist mein Künstlername. Und ich werde immer wieder gefragt, Mando, wie ist das eigentlich, wenn du zu Hause bist?
Now, people always ask me, what do you do when you practice beatboxing at home, and what do your neighbors think about it? And maybe they think the following about this.
Ja, so klingt das bestimmt für die.
Well, that's how it might sound to them.
Da werde ich auch sehr oft gefragt, was ist dein
Well, I also get questions about what's your favorite sound? Well, it changes over the years, and at the moment, my favorite sound is the zip. Well, sometimes you have, I mean, this could apply to the flip. Zip of jeans and of sports jacket. And it's very difficult, especially if you combine these sounds, percussion elements and a sports zip, but that's what I'm going to try now.
Oh, danke schön. Wow, es hat geklappt.
Great, I managed to do it.
Jetzt aber die spannendste aller
Now, of course, the most exciting question I get is, Mando, how do you do that? How can you learn beatboxing in a simple manner? Now, I'd like to do an experiment with you. Now, let's all whisper a word. And when we do that, we'll get a groove, a certain beat. And if you go home, when you go home later on, you can teach that to your friends and family. And now the word we'll whisper together is Pizzakatze in German. Pizzacat.
Wenn wir jetzt Pizzakatze flüstern, passiert Folgendes. Pizzakatze, Pizzakatze, Pizzakatze. Und wir flüstern gemeinsam. Pizzakatze, Pizzakatze, Pizzakatze. Und ihr macht selbstständig weiter. Vorbei! Dankeschön, das war's von mir. Ich komme später nochmal wieder, wie ihr auf dem Ablaufplan seht.
I'll be back later on. It was a great pleasure. Thank you. I'm looking forward to my performance later on, and congratulations to the organizers and the laureates. See you later.
So, ich sag doch ein bisschen mehr Berghain.
That's what I was saying. We need more Berghain here. We will hear from Mando later again, and now we'll proceed to the presentation of the Berliner Wissenschaftspreis. It goes to Professor Zürn from the Berlin Social Science Center. Mr. Zürn, we won over a wonderful scientist to hold a laudatory speech who appreciates your work. She wanted to be here but can't be with us for health reasons. She yet managed to send her speech in a video. Even though she can't be here, we'll be able to hear from her. She is Professor Schwarzer. She is an honorary professor for political sciences at Freie Universität in Berlin. She's a senior fellow at Harvard Kennedy School, was the director of the German Council on Foreign Relations, and held senior positions at the German Marshall Fund and the German Institute for International Security Affairs. We will see two films now, Professor Zürn and then the speech.
Mein Name ist Michael Zürn, ich bin Direktor am Wissenschaftszentrum Berlin für Sozialforschung. Ich bin Professor an der FU Berlin und dort auch Sprecher des Exzellenzclusters Contestations of the Liberal Script.
Michael Zürn ist der Mann fürs Theoretische und Konzeptuelle, auch bei uns im Cluster. Wir forschen an den großen Herausforderungen für die liberale Ordnung, das liberale Skript sozusagen, das Drehbuch für Gesellschaftsordnung, wie wir sie heute sehen.
Wie und unter welchen Bedingungen funktioniert internationale Kooperation, internationale Zusammenarbeit und auch internationale Organisationen tatsächlich als internationale Autoritäten? Was ist die Voraussetzung, dass das funktioniert und warum ist es denn so, dass diese bitter notwendigen Institutionen, bitter notwendig im Sinne der Problemlösung, plötzlich so unter Beschuss geraten sind und wir heute vielfach von einer Krise dieser Ordnung sprechen?
Michael Zürn beschäftigt sich mit transnationalen Organisationen und er beschäftigt sich nicht nur damit, sondern er beschäftigt sich dann mit der Verbindung zwischen diesen mehr oder weniger legitimierten, international tätigen Organisationen und gewählten Repräsentanten. Von daher bringt er die ganze Ordnung oder die ganze Unordnung der Welt zusammen in den Blick.
What makes Michael's research special is that he always makes sure that it's relevant. He always has his finger on the pulse of the latest developments in global governance and beyond.
An Herrn Zürn schätze ich auf jeden Fall, dass er offen diskutiert, auch gerne hart diskutiert. Aber ich glaube eben, dass nur so gute Forschung entsteht, indem man sich halt wirklich aktiv austauscht.
Ich erlebe Michael immer wieder als einen Mediator, einen Vermittler, jemanden, der immer wieder versucht, Brücken zu bauen zwischen Menschen, zwischen Institutionen, auch im Cluster zwischen den Einheiten.
Es ist eine tolle Ehre und es freut mich wahnsinnig. Und wir haben ja auch darauf hingewiesen schon, dass ich an vielen Stellen dabei war, auch an Institutionen mitzuwirken, die verschiedene Teile der Berliner Wissenschaftslandschaft zusammenbringen. Und ich sehe gerade diesen Beitrag auch als etwas, worauf ich stolz bin. Und deswegen freut es mich auch so besonders, dass es der Berliner Wissenschaftspreis ist.
Als ich mit meinem Sohn in der Schweiz, durch St. Gallen bin, und er sagte, schau mal, der sieht aus wie Zürn. Und ich schaute und was meinte er? Er meinte tatsächlich diesen Zürni, weil der so genau zerfleddert aussieht, wie Herr Zürn manchmal. Wir haben ihm jetzt natürlich eine Krone gemacht. Herzlichen Glückwunsch, Michael, vom ganzen WZB und auf eine große Feier.
Sehr geehrter
Professor Zürn, Governing Mayor of Berlin, Müller, ladies and gentlemen. I was very pleased that I was invited to hold the laudatory speech for Michael Zürn. But therefore, I'm all the more sad that I can't be with you at home, be with you today. Maybe you can hear it from my voice. It's a good cause that I'm not with you tonight at Urania, but send you a video message. Today, we are honoring a great thinker, a great researcher on international relations. Michael Zürn is a pioneer. He is a theoretician, an outstanding teacher and researcher in the area of global governance. He's highly esteemed in Germany as he is internationally. When we come here today to honor Professor Zürn, it is during the very days that the Global Climate Summit is taking place in Glasgow, COP26. This highlights more than anything how important the functioning of global architectures is. How important it is to bring stakeholders, stakeholders from civil society and the economy together, because the problems we're facing, climate change is just one of them. They cannot be solved by going it alone, neither by a single government nor by a single company. COVID-19, and we're still in the midst of it, shows that across all sectors at regional, national and international level, we need cooperation, we need to work together to fight the pandemic. There are countless other examples that provide evidence for what we hear. The call for more new international, global governance, for greater discipline of stakeholders that pose a threat to others. The times in which we live are times that this global order is being questioned more than ever, deliberately undermined. The structure, the architecture we're living in was shaped and safeguarded by the United States after the Second World War, and which is ultimately the cornerstone of the political model of the West, the system of values. But meanwhile, many stakeholders have emerged across the world, the most prominent one being China, who are questioning this order, who want to replace it with their own order, who engage in power struggles, fight for influence. They want a place at the table of the international community, and we can now see that new governance structures have emerged beyond the Western model, where we, as Germans, Europeans, part of the political West with the United States, are left with almost no room for maneuver. So we are, and we find ourselves in a competition of systems, of value systems. And this is reflected in power struggles between states, in the fact that global structures have become weaker and that it has become increasingly hard to get the different stakeholders together. So it is understandable that the call for stronger, for new global structures is becoming louder and louder. Michael Zürn's work can provide fresh impetus for this discussion, but it can do more, and it has great importance for other fields, for what we call the regression of democracy or crisis of democracy. Michael Zürn's work doesn't only look into the functioning of global structures, global architectures. He thinks about the consequences of the creation of these structures and the impact it has on the legitimacy of these architectures and the legitimacy of nations and nation-states. He works on questions of how the creation of supranational organizations, such as the European Union, can lead to political or social division. All of these topics are more in tune with the times than ever. We're living at a time at which we don't know whether the European Union, which is a fundamental part of Germany's foreign policy mission, whether this structure is coming under pressure, and when we need to be very careful about political polarization within and amongst states, societies, communities drifting apart, and what this has to do with the transnational risks that I spoke about at the onset. So how can international structures even have a destabilizing effect? This is also something he looks into. Michael Zürn's work is leading in the theoretical field, and it is of outstanding political relevance, as the examples I mentioned show. Michael Zürn is honored today as a professor for international relations at the Freie University Berlin, as director for global governance at the Berlin Social Sciences Center, and as co-director with Tanja Berzel in the DFG-funded project and Cluster Excellence Scripts, which focuses on the future of the liberal script at all levels, within and between societies and states, and at international level. Michael Zürn is a very popular and highly esteemed scientist and advisor. If you look at his curriculum, you will see that he is part of countless advisory boards, has held numerous editorships. He was actively engaged in research funding in political foundations and, of course, in academia. People ask him to join their projects because there's something very special about him. He's not just a pioneer in his field and is internationally renowned for it. He's also somebody who always stands ready to engage in fierce debates, to discuss with others openly, and to get involved with others, even if this other person has entirely different ideas than him. This is one of the reasons, I believe, why Michael Zürn is so popular, so esteemed, and why he, in Berlin, too, is somebody who has made an outstanding contribution and continues to do so. He's also the founding dean of the Hertie School of Governance, a very successful project, a school that managed to bridge the gap between outstanding scientific research and the training of young people for public policy work, but not only in the area of governance, but also in the field of civil society and business, in fields where the understanding of certain criteria and processes of international governance, of global governance or European governance is fundamental. In the video we just saw, Michael Zürn said that he's delighted he was awarded the Berliner Wissenschaftspreis, and I think we can rightly say today he earned it. Michael Zürn's contribution to Berlin as a centre of science and learning is outstanding. I'd like to congratulate you, Michael Zürn. We are delighted that you're receiving the award today. Thank you very much indeed. Ms. Sievers left me something. Well, yes. The governing mayor of Berlin awards Professor Dr. Michael Zürn, Berlin Social Sciences Center, WZB, the Berliner Wissenschaftspreis for his outstanding achievements in global governance and his contribution to Berlin as a hub of science and learning. Berlin, November 5th, 2021, Michael Müller, governing mayor of Berlin. Professor Zürn, congratulations.
Now, I would have liked to watch 2 more videos, actually. It was fun to see this from such a perspective, and it reminded me of a colleague, a very important and eminent political scientist who had to give a testimonial about me. And actually, I thought he gave me praise. He praised me to the skies, and this is how I felt right now. Now, governing mayor, distinguished guests, colleagues, Mira, Sievers, friends. Now, I stand here before you and have to find the right words in this situation. And I think all laureates, whether they are men or women, whether they are as young as Mrs. Sievers or more mature, or older, you might also say, or not as fresh, they face 3 challenges. Now, the first is you have to express something that is self-evident, namely that you are overjoyed. And many people do that by using enthusiastic epithets and showing enthusiastic gestures. Now, enthusiasm is not my forte. I need to warn you, so I will simply say thank you. I'm mighty chuffed about the award in colloquial Berlin style, and I'm proud as well. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. The second challenge is that you are supposed to thank all those who made it possible for you, or in my case, me, to stand here before you. And of course, it's impossible to do that without boring you. So I want to abbreviate that. I don't want to give you a long list of names and institutions. So I will thank everybody who I will not mention by name, and I will do that in a particularly cordial way, namely my wife and my family. Now, that also allows me to focus on what is really important in this regard, namely the work relationships and institutions that allow me to pursue my research. I'd like to start with the WZB Berlin Social Science Center, where you can see me in slightly disheveled walking the corridors. And well, I have a lot of fantastic colleagues, and especially thanks to our president, Jutta Almendinger. They create an excellent working environment, which is unique in academia thanks to its intellectual superiority and supportive culture. It's a gift to be able to work here. Now, to the governing mayor and the permanent secretary for higher education and culture, and the regional president of Hanover, I'd like to say that I never regretted choosing the WZB and the Hertie School over a certain Max Planck Institute, although the latter is located in a city with an efficient airport. I never regretted it. Now, within the WZB, my own research unit, Global Governance, is especially close to my heart. Every day I tell myself how lucky I am to be a part of this wonderful community, and I'd like to thank Katinka von Kovacic and Christian Rau, who hold this together and whose daily work I appreciate. Last but not least, I'd like to mention the Cluster of Excellence, Contestations of the Liberal Script, or Scripts for short, as we say, with its rich diversity, intellectual prowess, makes it easy to do good work. We are proud that we have managed, as we have heard before, as a network to join forces in Berlin and beyond in the social sciences. And we have 2 heads in different institutions, and that means it's really a project that spans the whole of Berlin, namely the Berlin Social Center and 5 other research units, the Freie University and Berlin and others, and even universities in other countries. Now, I'd like to thank Tanja Berzel and other friends, but especially her who is the co-head of this cluster. Now I'll come to the third challenge. It would be desirable to say something substantial that could maybe serve as an intellectual stimulus and that you might remember, but actually we have no time for that, or usually we have no time for this after all these words of thanks. But allow me to say a few words about a project I'm working on as part of the cluster, namely the importance of academia and truth in democracy, a topic highlighted by the governing mayor as well. First, we need to establish, and this is important in this debate, that academia needs to be protected from abuse, as Mr. Müller has pointed out, but we also need to be clear that academia is not doing democracy any favors if it starts colonizing it. That is to say, if it encroaches on it. If political debate is cut short because people point to what science and academia have established as necessary, if science academia is used as a means of depoliticization, then conversely, there is a real risk of undermining the regulative principle that the truth needs to be sought and arrived at as part of the democratic process. And today we are witnessing such an attack, even in a mature democracy like ours, but especially perpetrated by authoritarian populism on a global level. Now, that which has been established as a provisional truth by public debate and by relevant scientists and academics is no longer recognized. We have a problem of recognition, and in some cases it is even denied and negated. Consider the COVID skeptics or the former President Trump, whose acolytes refused to acknowledge that he lost the election. Questioning the reality of climate change was an early indicator of this trend, and we need to be clear about it. In contrast to lies, which used to be a well-known and established fact of political life as part of the toolbox of politics. Now, this sort of strategy of denial of truth has no problem with being unmasked, and that's the fundamental problem. When Kellyanne Conway, Trump's former campaign manager and advisor, was confronted with data and images refuting the claim that there were more people at Donald Trump's inauguration than that of Barack Obama, she used this infamous phrase. She simply pleaded alternative facts, and that's the problem. The lie was unmasked, but she simply questioned the concept of truth itself. Now also, the constant talk of a lying press has done enormous damage to the role of high-quality media as arbiters that determine which arguments and methods are permitted in public discourse and which are not. This risks turning public debate into a battlefield of words that bear no relation to the truth whatsoever. At the same time, the Republic of Science and Academia is regarded as an ally of the liberal and cosmopolitan class who call the shots in politics and who are living the high life at the expense of ordinary people like myself today. Populism represents a fundamental challenge to liberal democracy, and that's the working hypothesis here, precisely because it suspends the unattainable ideal of truth as a guiding principle and declares science and academia to be untrustworthy. Science and academia and the results it brings forth. Now, to conclude, I'd like to quote Thomas Mann. I've been fortunate to be able to spend 3 months recently as a fellow in his former home. So he is my Willy Brandt. Everybody needs his own Willy Brandt. Now, to bring a brief quote from a speech he gave in the 1930s, where he referred to the petty bourgeoisie who suffers from a thinking frenzy. He said, among the European ideas which they consider obsolete thanks to their elevation. Truth, freedom, justice. Truth is the one most abhorrent, most egregious to him. Now, this observation, it seems to me, still holds true today. And that is why, going forward, I'd like to investigate on what basis society recognizes and accepts temporary truths on a sociological basis, and how relevant this is for democracy to function, this illusion, this fiction that such a truth exists. Now, this prize, of course, is a powerful incentive for me to look into this question, especially as we face such challenges. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Well, I was given the honor to finish tonight's event, and I'd like to do it in a special way. I brought you something. Now, here you can see a loop station, and that gives me the opportunity to record samples and to play them, to repeat them back to you, so I can clone myself on stage live. And just so that you can see that this is live, I'd like to ask you to give me 3 words which I will use in a brief improvisation, so that you can see that this is ad hoc, that this is impromptu. Now, maybe the governing mayor, can you just give me a word that just comes to your mind? Truth. Okay, truth. Then maybe from back there, it doesn't need to be related to truth. Lie, maybe. Okay, so we're not talking about the most difficult words that you can think of. So we have truth. Maybe we can get another word from back there. Music, okay. And from the other side of the hall, something that's completely unrelated to truth and music. I know it's difficult. Administration. Wow, truth, music, and administration are the 3 words. So this is produced live now, and tomorrow it'll be played on the radio. Let's see what happens. Actually, I've always wanted to perform at Berghain.
Musik. 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 Wahrheit. 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 Musik. So, jetzt haben wir schon Musik, wir haben Wahrheit und das dritte war Verwaltung.
So we have music, truth, and administration was the 3rd word.
Musik. Verwaltung. 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 Wahrheit. Wahrheit. Musik. Musik. Wahrheit. Genau, so funktioniert's.
So that's how it works. You can clap your hands.
Und jetzt möchte ich ganz gerne
now I can prove to you that this is live. I'd like to produce a song that is close to my heart, that has allowed me to win an international award a couple of years ago. And this song is a mixture of salsa music and hip-hop, a cover song of Buena Vista Social Club and Mauritius. Thank you. Enjoy.
Vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y caña, donde el sudor de guajiro hace la tierra soñar. Vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y caña.
Let's lift up your hands and wave them in the rhythm.
Hacia la tierra soña. Vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y caña, donde el sudor de guajiro hacia la tierra soña. Vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y caña, donde el sudor de guajiro hacia la tierra soña. Estamos haciendo una fiestita chiquita, después me preparo para la fiesta bonita. Hoy a la noche vamos a mover la colita y nos levantamos una buena maminita. Hasta arriba, arriba, con el vaso tequila. Ya te miro la mira, con la cara te pira.
Como mueve puro cuando ella camina, pero como se llama, tiene que no percibir.
Empezamos, fumamos, tomamos y nos vamos. La llevo a tomar, a todos los lados estamos a dos.
Nadie me molesta con esta cerveza.
Sigue la cerveza porque yo que la toco y mi sótano de repente es presente como un hipopótamo. Y otra vez me tomo la vida del pelo. Sea como sea, quiero tequila con hielo. Vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y caña, donde el sudor de guajiro hace la tierra. Vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y caña, donde el sudor de guajiro hace la tierra. Und jetzt ein Riesenapplaus für den Trompeter des heutigen Tages, Mando! Al día siguiente me duele la frente. Voy por la calle y me mira la gente como a un asesino latino. Pero soy solo el vecino divino. Esa fiesta me rompe la cabeza. Junto los pedazos y los pongo en la mesa. Como pesa este rompecabezas, mi lengua se siente como una milanesa. Vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y caña, donde el sudor de guajiro hace la tierra. Vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y caña, donde el sudor de guajiro hace la tierra. Vengo de donde, vengo de donde, vengo de, vengo de, vengo de, vengo de, vengo de donde hay un río, tabaco y cañaveral.
So, unfortunately, we've reached the end of tonight's program. The motto today should be excellence, meet administration and truth, but now I would like you to enjoy the reception outside. Let's celebrate the awardees. Thanks to everybody who's watched online. Thanks to everybody who's been here. Enjoy tonight, and I'd like to see you again for next year's Wissenschaftspreis. Thank you. Have a great evening.